Imagine this. You're one of the most powerful men in the city, a tycoon who's built an empire from the ground up. You've got it all: wealth, influence, and a reputation that commands respect. But one rainy night, as you step out of a high-rise building, your world is about to be turned upside down in the most unexpected way. You hail a taxi, just like you've done 1,000 times before, but this time, the driver isn't just any stranger. As the window rolls down, you're met with a face from your past, a face you never thought you'd see again. It's her. A single black mother you once knew, someone whose life you thought you'd left behind forever. And in that moment, everything changes. The past comes rushing back, secrets you thought were buried resurface, and you're left with one burning question: what is she doing here, and why now? If that doesn't grab your attention, I don't know what will. Welcome to a story that's about to take you on a roller coaster of emotions. A tale of power, redemption, and the unexpected twists life throws at us when we least expect it. This isn't just another rags to riches story or a typical tale of love and loss. No, this is something deeper, something that will make you question the choices you've made, the people you've left behind, and the paths you've walked away from. By the end of this video, you're going to get answers to questions you didn't even know you had. But here's the thing, you're going to have to stick with me until the very end, because this story isn't just about what happens next, it's about why it happens and what it means for everyone involved. Let's talk about you for a second. Yes, you. The person watching this video right now. You're here because you're curious, because you want to know what happens when two worlds collide in the most unexpected way. Maybe you've been in a situation where the past came knocking on your door, uninvited and unannounced. Maybe you've wondered what it would be like to come face to face with someone you thought you'd never see again. Or maybe you're just here for the drama, the kind of story that keeps you on the edge of your seat, wondering how it's all going to play out. Whatever the reason, I'm glad you're here, because this story is for you. It's for anyone who's ever wondered if the choices they made were the right ones. For anyone who's ever felt the weight of their past pressing down on them. And for anyone who's ever questioned whether they can truly outrun where they came from. Now, let's set the stage. Our story begins with a man we'll call Daniel Carter. Daniel is the epitome of success, a self-made millionaire who's built a real estate empire that spans the entire city. He's the kind of man who's used to getting what he wants, when he wants it. But beneath the polished exterior, there's a side of Daniel that few people know about. A side that's haunted by the choices he made years ago, choices that led him to where he is today. And then there's Monique Harris, the taxi driver who's about to turn Daniel's world upside down. Monique is a single mother of two, working tirelessly to make ends meet. She's strong, resilient, and determined to give her kids a better life than the one she's had. But like Daniel, Monique has her own secrets, her own regrets, and her own reasons for being behind the wheel of that taxi on that fateful night. As the story unfolds, we'll dive deep into the lives of these two characters, exploring the choices that brought them to this moment and the secrets that threaten to unravel everything they've built. We'll see how their paths crossed in the past, and how those encounters shaped the people they've become. But here's the thing, this isn't just a story about Daniel and Monique. It's a story about all of us. It's about the power of second chances, the weight of our decisions, and the unexpected ways our lives can intersect with others. It's about the moments that define us, the people who shape us, and the choices that ultimately determine our fate. So what happens when Daniel steps into that taxi? What does Monique want from him after all these years? And what secrets are they both hiding that could change everything? I promise you, the answers are coming, but you're going to have to stay with me to find out. Because this isn't just a story, it's an experience. One that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about power, privilege, and the people we meet along the way. So, buckle up. You're in for a ride you won't soon forget. And remember, the truth is always more complicated than it seems. Are you ready to find out what happens next? Let's dive in. The taxi pulls away from the curb, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows. Daniel Carter sits in stunned silence. His mind races, trying to process the impossible. Monique Harris, the woman he hasn't seen in over a decade, is now driving him through the streets of the city he once thought he owned. The last time he saw her, they were both young, ambitious, and full of dreams. But life had taken them in wildly different directions. Daniel had climbed the ladder of success, leaving behind the struggles of his past, while Monique had faced challenges that would have broken most people. Yet here she is, calm and composed, her hands steady on the wheel, as if this were just another ordinary night. But Daniel knows better. Nothing about this is ordinary. The air between them is thick with unspoken words, with memories that neither of them has forgotten. And as the silence stretches on, Daniel can't help but wonder, why is she here? Why now? And what does she want from me? To understand the gravity of this moment, we need to rewind the clock. 15 years ago, Daniel and Monique were more than just acquaintances. They were two sides of the same coin, each striving for a better life in a world that seemed determined to keep them down. They met in a community college class, both working part-time jobs to pay their way through school. Daniel was the charismatic dreamer, always talking about building an empire, while Monique was the grounded realist, focused on creating a stable future for herself and her family. For a brief time, their lives intertwined in ways that neither of them could have predicted. They became friends, confidants, and, for a fleeting moment, something more. But life had other plans. A series of choices, some made by them, some made for them, pulled them apart, sending them down paths that would shape their futures in ways they never imagined. For Daniel, that path led to wealth and power. He dropped out of college, took a risk on a real estate venture, and struck gold. Over the years, he built a name for himself as a ruthless businessman, someone who could turn any deal to his advantage. But success came at a cost. The man who once dreamed of changing the world became someone who only cared about his bottom line. He left behind the people who had supported him, including Monique, and never looked back. Until now. As he sits in the back of her taxi, he can't help but feel the weight of those choices pressing down on him. The guilt, the regret, the questions he's spent years avoiding, they're all bubbling to the surface, and he doesn't know how to handle it. Monique, on the other hand, has had a very different journey. After Daniel left, she struggled to keep her head above water. She worked multiple jobs, raised her children on her own, and faced obstacles that would have made anyone else give up. But Monique is a fighter. She's the kind of person who doesn't back down, no matter how hard life gets. And yet, despite her strength, there's a sadness in her eyes that Daniel can't ignore. It's a sadness that speaks of dreams deferred, of sacrifices made, and of a life that hasn't turned out the way she hoped. But there's also something else, a quiet determination, a sense of purpose that Daniel can't quite put his finger on. Whatever brought her to this moment, it's clear that she's not here by accident. She has a plan, and Daniel is about to find out what it is. As the taxi winds its way through the city, the tension between them grows. Daniel tries to make small talk, but Monique's responses are curt, her tone guarded. It's clear that she's not interested in rehashing the past, at least. Not yet. Instead, she steers the conversation toward the present, asking Daniel about his life, his business, his success. At first, he's relieved to talk about something he knows, something he can control. But as the questions keep coming, he starts to feel uneasy. There's something about the way she's looking at him, something in her voice that makes him wonder if she knows more than she's letting on. And then, just as the tension reaches its peak, she drops a bombshell. Do you ever think about what happened to the people you left behind, Daniel? The ones who didn't have the luxury of walking away? The question hits him like a punch to the gut. For a moment, he's speechless, his mind racing to come up with a response. But before he can say anything, Monique pulls the taxi over to the side of the road. They're in a part of the city Daniel hasn't visited in years, a neighborhood that's seen better days, where the streets are lined with boarded-up buildings and the air smells of desperation. Monique turns off the engine and looks at him in the rearview mirror, her eyes piercing. "You've been living in your bubble for too long, Daniel," she says. "It's time you saw what's really going on out here." And with that, she gets out of the car, leaving Daniel to follow her into the night. What happens next is a journey that will challenge everything Daniel thought he knew about himself, about Monique, and about the world they both inhabit. As they walk through the neighborhood, Monique shows him a side of the city he spent years ignoring, a side where people are struggling to survive, where dreams are crushed before they even have a chance to take root. She introduces him to people whose lives have been affected by his business decisions, people who have lost their homes, their jobs, their hope. And with each story, each face, Daniel feels the walls of his carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. But this is just the beginning. As the night goes on, Monique reveals that she's not just here to show him the consequences of his actions. She's here to ask for his help to right the wrongs of the past and to give the people of this neighborhood a fighting chance. But there's a catch. Monique has a plan, one that will require Daniel to risk everything he's built. And as the pieces of her plan start to come together, Daniel realizes that this isn't just about redemption, it's about survival. But Monique isn't the only one with secrets. As the night unfolds, Daniel begins to suspect that there's more to her story than she's letting on. Why did she really seek him out after all these years? What's her connection to the people in this neighborhood? And what's she hiding behind that calm, composed exterior? The answers to these questions are buried deep, and uncovering them will take Daniel on a journey that will test his limits, challenge his beliefs, and force him to confront the man he's become. But one thing is certain, by the time this night is over, nothing will ever be the same. The past and the present are about to collide in ways that neither of them could have predicted, and the stakes are higher than either of them realizes. So, what happens next? What choices will Daniel make? And what secrets will come to light? The answers are coming, but you'll have to stay tuned to find out. Because this story is far from over, and the best and worst is yet to come. As Daniel follows Monique through the dimly lit streets, the weight of her words settles heavily on his shoulders. The faces she shows him, the stories she shares, they're not just random encounters. They're pieces of a puzzle, a carefully curated narrative designed to make him see what he spent years avoiding. But just as he starts to feel the full impact of her revelations, Monique stops in front of a small, rundown community center. The sign above the door is faded, but the words "Hope Rising" are still barely visible. She turns to him, her expression unreadable, and says, "This is where it all begins, Daniel. This is where you decide who you really are." Before he can respond, she pushes the door open and steps inside, leaving him no choice but to follow. The inside of the community center is a stark contrast to the bleakness outside. The walls are covered in colorful murals, the air is filled with the sound of laughter and conversation, and the space is alive with energy. Children are playing games in one corner, while a group of adults sits in a circle, deep in discussion. It's a place of hope, of resilience, of people coming together to build something better. But as Daniel takes it all in, he can't shake the feeling that there's more to this place than meets the eye. Monique leads him to a small office at the back of the building, where a man in his late 40s is waiting for them. He introduces himself as Marcus, the director of Hope Rising, and his demeanor is calm but intense. "We've been waiting for you, Daniel," Marcus says, his voice steady but laced with something that sends a chill down Daniel's spine. "We've been waiting for a long time." Before Daniel can ask what he means, Marcus pulls out a folder and slides it across the table. Inside are documents, contracts, deeds, and financial records, all tied to Daniel's real estate empire. But these aren't just any documents. They're evidence of deals gone wrong, of people displaced, of promises broken. And at the center of it all is a name that Daniel hasn't heard in years: Ethan Carter, his younger brother. Daniel's heart skips a beat as he flips through the pages, his mind racing to make sense of what he's seeing. Ethan disappeared years ago, leaving behind a trail of debt and betrayal that Daniel had to clean up. But according to these documents, Ethan's disappearance wasn't just a personal failure. It was part of something much bigger, something that ties directly to the people in this room. "Your brother wasn't just running from his problems, Daniel," Marcus says, his eyes locked on Daniel's. "He was running from them." The room falls silent as Daniel tries to process what he's just heard. "Who is them?" What did Ethan get involved in? And why is this only coming to light now? Monique steps forward, her voice soft but firm. Ethan came to us years ago looking for help, she explains. He was in over his head, mixed up with people who don't play by the rules. He wanted out, but he didn't know how to make it happen. So he did the only thing he could think of. He disappeared. But before he left, he gave us these documents. He said they were insurance, a way to protect himself and us if things went south. Daniel feels a surge of anger, confusion, and guilt all at once. His brother, the one person he thought he'd left behind, is somehow at the center of this mess. And now, Daniel is being pulled into a world he doesn't understand, a world where the stakes are higher than he ever imagined. But the surprises don't stop there. As Marcus and Monique continue to explain, Daniel learns that Hope Rising isn't just a community center. It's the heart of a grassroots movement aimed at taking down the very system that Daniel has spent his life building. The people here, the ones Monique introduced him to earlier, aren't just victims of his business practices. They're fighters, united by a common goal, to hold the powerful accountable and to reclaim what's been taken from them. And now, they want Daniel to join them. Not as an enemy, but as an ally. You have a choice, Daniel, Monique says, her voice steady but filled with emotion. You can keep running from your past, or you can face it head on. You can keep building your empire on the backs of people like us, or you can use your power to make a real difference. The choice is yours. But know this: if you walk away now, you'll never get another chance. The weight of her words hangs in the air, and for the first time in years, Daniel feels truly uncertain. He spent his life chasing success, building walls to keep the past at bay. But now, those walls are crumbling, and he's being forced to confront the man he's become. Can he really walk away from everything he's built? Can he risk it all for a cause he barely understands? And more importantly, can he trust the people in this room, especially Monique, who seems to know more about his past than he's comfortable with? As he looks around at the faces watching him, he realizes that this isn't just about him. It's about the lives he's impacted, the choices he's made, and the legacy he wants to leave behind. But before he can make a decision, Marcus drops one final bombshell. There's something else you need to know, Daniel. Ethan's not gone. He's been here all along, waiting for the right moment to come back. And that moment is now. The room spins as Daniel tries to process what he's just heard. His brother, the one he thought was lost forever, is alive. And he's been here, in this very building, all this time. But why? What does Ethan want? And what role does he play in all of this? The questions swirl in Daniel's mind. But before he can ask any of them, the door bursts open, and a man steps inside. He's older, rougher around the edges, but there's no mistaking who he is. It's Ethan, the brother Daniel thought he'd never see again. And as their eyes meet, Daniel realizes that this night is far from over. The past, the present, and the future are about to collide in ways he never could have imagined. And the choices he makes in the next few moments will change everything for him, for Monique, and for everyone in this room. But what happens next? What secrets will come to light? And who can Daniel really trust? The answers are coming, but the stakes have never been higher. Stay tuned, because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. The room falls into a stunned silence as Ethan steps inside, his presence like a ghost from a past Daniel had buried long ago. For a moment, neither brother speaks, the weight of years of separation and unspoken truths hanging heavy in the air. Ethan looks different, older, harder, with lines on his face that speak of a life lived on the edge. But there's something else in his eyes, something Daniel can't quite place. Regret? Resentment? Or maybe a flicker of hope? Before Daniel can find the words to break the silence, Ethan speaks, his voice low and steady. I didn't think I'd ever see you again, Daniel. But here we are. The words are simple, but they carry a weight that makes Daniel's chest tighten. This isn't just a reunion, it's a reckoning. And as Ethan steps further into the room, Daniel realizes that the night is about to take a turn he never saw coming. Ethan doesn't waste time with small talk. He walks over to the table, picks up the folder of documents, and flips through them with a familiarity that suggests he spent a lot of time with them. "You've seen these, I assume," he says, his tone matter-of-fact. "They're just the tip of the iceberg, Daniel. There's more, much more. And if it gets out, it won't just ruin you. It'll destroy everything you've built." Daniel's mind races as he tries to process what Ethan is saying. What else could there be? What secrets has his brother been hiding all these years? And why is he revealing them now? Before Daniel can ask, Ethan continues, his voice taking on a harder edge. "I didn't just disappear because I was in trouble, Daniel. I disappeared because I found out what they were planning, what you were a part of, even if you didn't realize it. The people you've been doing business with. The deals you've been making, they're not just about money. They're about control, about power. And they'll stop at nothing to keep it." The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in as Daniel struggles to make sense of Ethan's words. He wants to argue, to deny, to insist that he's not part of whatever conspiracy Ethan is talking about. But deep down, he knows there's truth in what his brother is saying. He's seen the signs over the years, the shady deals, the unexplained disappearances, the way certain people always seemed to get what they wanted, no matter the cost. He just never wanted to admit it, never wanted to believe that he was part of something so dark. But now, faced with the evidence and the intensity in Ethan's eyes, he can't ignore it any longer. "What are you saying, Ethan?" Daniel finally asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from me?" Ethan doesn't answer right away. Instead, he looks at Monique, then at Marcus, and finally back at Daniel. "I want you to make it right," he says, his voice firm but tinged with something softer, something that sounds almost like pleading. "You have the power to stop this, Daniel. You have the resources, the connections, the influence. But more than that, you have a choice. You can keep playing their game, or you can help us take them down. And if you do, you'll not only save yourself, you'll save countless others who've been caught in their web." The room falls silent again as Daniel absorbs Ethan's words. It's a lot to take in, too much. Maybe. But as he looks around at the faces in the room, at the people who've been fighting for so long with so little, he feels something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he feels a sense of purpose, a clarity he didn't know he was missing. And in that moment, he makes his decision. "What do you need me to do?" Daniel asks, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Ethan smiles, a small, tired smile, but a smile nonetheless. And then, for the next hour, they talk. They lay out a plan, one that will require every ounce of courage, every resource, and every connection Daniel has. It's risky, maybe even suicidal. But it's also the only way to bring down the system that's been exploiting people like Monique and Marcus for far too long. As the night wears on, Daniel learns more about the people he's been working with, the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes. He learns about their greed, their cruelty, their willingness to destroy anyone who gets in their way. And he learns about the role he's played in it all, even if he didn't realize it at the time. It's a hard pill to swallow, but he knows he has to face it if he's going to make things right. By the time the meeting ends, the first light of dawn is breaking through the windows. Daniel feels exhausted but strangely hopeful. For the first time in years, he feels like he's on the right path, like he's finally doing something that matters. But just as he's about to leave, Monique pulls him aside. "There's one more thing you need to know," she says, her voice low and urgent. "This isn't just about taking down the system, Daniel. It's about redemption. For you, for Ethan, for all of us. But redemption doesn't come easy. There will be consequences. There will be sacrifices. And not everyone will make it out alive." Her words send a chill down Daniel's spine, but he knows she's right. This isn't just a battle, it's a war. And wars always come with a cost. The weeks that follow are a whirlwind of action, danger, and heart-stopping moments. Daniel uses his influence to gather evidence, to rally allies, and to expose the corruption at the highest levels. It's a dangerous game, and there are times when he's not sure he'll make it out alive. But through it all, he's driven by a newfound sense of purpose, and by the people who've put their trust in him. Monique, Marcus, and even Ethan are by his side every step of the way, their determination unwavering even in the face of unimaginable odds. And then, finally, the day comes when they're ready to strike. It's a tense, nerve-wracking operation filled with close calls and moments of sheer terror. But in the end, they succeed. The corrupt system is exposed, the powerful are brought to justice, and the people of the neighborhood finally have a chance to rebuild their lives. But the victory comes at a cost. In the final moments of the operation, Ethan is gravely injured while protecting Daniel from an attack. As Daniel kneels beside his brother, holding his hand and begging him to hold on, Ethan smiles weakly. "I'm proud of you, Daniel," he says, his voice barely audible. "You did the right thing. Don't ever forget that." And with those words, Ethan closes his eyes, leaving Daniel to grapple with a grief he never expected to feel. In the days that follow, Daniel struggles to come to terms with his loss. But he also finds solace in the knowledge that Ethan's sacrifice wasn't in vain. The neighborhood is thriving, the people are hopeful, and Daniel has finally found a sense of peace, not in the wealth or power he once chased, but in the knowledge that he's made a difference. The story ends with Daniel standing outside the Hope Rising Community Center, watching as children play and families laugh. Monique joins him, her presence a quiet reminder of the journey they've been on together. "You did good, Daniel," she says, her voice soft but filled with warmth. "You gave them a future, and in doing so, you found your own." Daniel smiles, a genuine smile that reaches his eyes for the first time in years. He knows the road ahead won't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, he feels like he's exactly where he's supposed to be. And as he looks out at the people he's helped, he realizes that this is just the beginning. The past is behind him, the future is wide open, and for the first time in his life, Daniel Carter is truly free.